Okay. Let's quick to review the rule of Carcassonne we did before, and for this week we will begin from the internal model. So you have it's your turn.
Okay, this week we push both at the city scale and the model scale. So first I will show you the model scale design. So we use the Carcassonne for plan generation. So we need to build cars in our interior space design in order to meet the needs of all the cars combination possibilities. We carried out a modular design in the basis of car space of 2 meters by 2 meters, according to the degree of the openness of the space. So the models are divided into 6 different degrees in the left. The first one is a fully enclosed space, and the 3 sides enclosed space, and the corner and the corridor like 2 sides enclosed space, and the 1 side edge space, and the unenclosed central space. And after referring to a large number of small office space examples, we designed the models for our customers from small and medium-sized companies in our 6 types of functional spaces. Those models will not form a very large or continuous same tribe after they are combined. We take a fully enclosed office space as an example. It may be generated with soiled and or glass walls. That depends on its location in the plane and the degrees of privacy it needs. And for A3 and A5, their furniture's arrangement is changed according to the user's preference, while their walls does not change. Next. And in the category of other spaces, there will be maybe storage space and restroom, and the reception will also have space for office work and storage. And next is our city scale design. We will use these models to replace the color box in the city models, but we haven't done that yet. So Zhichen, you can start.
Sorry, maybe I will first before Zhichen's turn.
Oh, okay.
For this part, this is with analysis in the last weeks, and we should before, so we quickly review for this part. And for this week, according to the previous data of Latifund's about the types and accompanying location of a company which is suitable for remote working, we visualize this data and determine the location of these companies in Latifund's. Then we cluster the location of these companies to determine the center. After continuous iterative testing, we found that this company location can be divided into about 6 groups based on our analysis of the available site in the Latifund site. The location of the group center in the available site, we select the site which are suitable for remote working in Latifund, and we choose one of the cluster as an example. And first of all, we hope to explore possible architectural form by using the skyline attractive spot around the site and the price in the site as the limited factors. And this is all the result about our attempt. And Zhicheng, could you send the website for the the room chart, and maybe you can see the result from the website. And we hope that the area of the new buildings can meet the need of companies which are suitable for remote working at the present stage for office space. And on the one hand, it can provide more development space for president. And on the other hand, it can provide more development space for the future. We based on this area of the site and the ritual of open space in the site, and then we choose the architectural form about this site.
Okay, thanks a lot. I think it's definitely more precise and more convincing. What I kind of like is that you start, I mean, you both have more precise things when it comes to the interior design of the office. So probably you can go to the, I will tell you. Yeah, that one. So here it's quite precise and interesting. The definition of all of these elements based on a certain kind of ambience and logic, and then you start defining at the scale of 1 pixel what it means with, of course, with neighborhood rules. So I think it is okay. I'm not completely convinced because of the difference of scale between these things. I'm not completely convinced by the fact that you consider everything at the same scale, because it seems to me that the scale is not always the same. For example, here you have a big meeting room, so you have a certain logic here. Here you have a small bathroom or kitchen, or I don't know exactly what it is, and you have the same. You almost have the same scale, but obviously in real you would need maybe 1 or 2 modules like this, and you would need many modules like this that would be one next to each other in order to recreate a complete meeting room, because here there's only one chair, and if you want to recreate this meeting room, you need to put many of these modules like this. So this is the problem I have at the moment with this, is that this alone is okay, but here you need many, but the way you represent these things has the same scale. So make sure that this doesn't lead you to some contradiction. You see what I mean? I assume you know about that, of course, but double check and don't lose the idea of the real scale of this component once they are implemented in the project. So this is one important remark. I think you really need to pay attention to that.
Yeah, I want to add something to that as well, because I think it's good that you start making the colors that you have in your cards more concrete, and that you start defining what they look like. But one thing that you said is contradictory for me, because you said that these are the cards, but they're not, because your cards are 4x4. No, 2x2, sorry. Your cards are 4 pixels, and that's what's good about it, because each card contains information about a combination of different functions. It's not just pixels of one function. That's why the card idea was compelling, because you analyzed what occurrences of different ones come together in a cluster of 4 functions. So these designs should also be designs for the combination of 4 different pixels, and not 1 pixel at a time. Because if you go to the previous, like 2 pages back, so page 9, or maybe one further back, I don't know, page 8. Yeah, so exactly here. So here, your cards are 4 pixels. So I want to know how do you interpret this as a spatial version? Not how do you interpret red and 4 times red, because to me, a meeting room with 4 red spaces is very different to a meeting room with 2 red spaces. And you should take that into account. So once you start making them more concrete, you should do them as clusters of 4 pixels rather than singular ones, because that will give you much more variation, also more exciting spaces, because you can do more within between the connections. Because to me, a hallway next to an office will be a very different dynamic to an office next to a kitchen. It can't just be the same one. You can't say an office pixel with a wall next to it will always look like that because it's different. So because of that, your defining of these cards should go card by card, not pixel by pixel.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not detailed. It's precise, but it's not detailed. It's important. So make sure there's no misunderstanding of your own system when you are applying, when you are implementing it in the project. But again, for the moment, I think it's almost okay, but pay attention to these remarks by Julian and my own remark regarding the scale. Now, when you move to some more global scale, so maybe you can keep moving. Again, I mean, all that, all of those things here, all of that is interesting. This, I mean, you are really moving. I think this is good. You are really trying to figure out how the internal organization of your office can work with a more global environment. So I really believe it's good move. You know, it's really good. Now, if you go to the slide more towards the end with the color, yeah, that one. Okay. Slide 24. What's not clear to me, or maybe it's more obvious on slide 23. Yeah, what's not clear to me is the exact nature of this as a wall. I mean, not each cell, but really this as a wall. Because if I compare, for example, the size of this, if I compare to this building, if I compare to this building, etc., as you can see, it is much lower, it's much smaller. So my question here is, according to you, what is this at the very moment? In terms of, not in terms of internal organization of office space, but in terms of building, let's say. It's a building. So it means, again, I am perfectly fine with this, but it means that you are introducing in La Défense a typology of building which is much lower than the existing one. I mean, this is not a skyscraper, but just imagine that we have a skyscraper here. So obviously, in that case, it would be something like this, you know, quite big. So in fact, it means that you are introducing in La Défense really small scale buildings. That's what you are doing, right? Okay. I mean, it's okay. I just wanted to know, because I was not sure how to consider how I should consider that. I didn't know if it was really a building, or just a part of the building with something more on top, etc., or just like repeating these things. So it means that if I make it simple, you are introducing in La Défense a kind of low-rise office building, much closer to what happens in the Silicon Valley, compared to the usual high-rise building that we find in CBDs. So this is exact, right? Okay, good. I mean, it's okay. Again, I just wanted to double check. So this means, it means, I think it's interesting because what I like in that thing is that it could be the building, but it could also be the main function of a building, and then you can think of having other kind of envelope, you know, which covers all of those things. A bit similar to what is happening at the moment with the Googleplex. So probably you can look at the Googleplex. So let me see if I find a link. Googleplex building, which is under construction by by Big, you know. Yeah, I think this image should be okay. Okay, look at this link. You know, what is interesting is that you are introducing a radically different scale in the landscape of La Défense, which is quite radical, and according to me, quite provocative and potentially super interesting. And I think you need to build. You need to make this idea even more radical. So rather than putting many buildings around, you know, a bit like what you have with the Googleplex, I think you should not be afraid of having a lot of empty space. You know, I mean, just imagine that all of that is really empty. What I like in this idea is that La Défense and CBDs in general, it's really about density. It's about density because the land is extremely expensive. So people want to build as much as possible. They want to build as high as possible. Here you introduce a new kind of typology in La Défense, which again is based on an architectural logic from inside out. This is the architectural logic. You start from the core, you start from the center, you start from the office, and you develop your building towards the outside. So what I think is interesting here is that contrary again to what happened in La Défense usually it's about creating buildings, big towers, and these big towers, they are first designed from the outside, and then we look at what we can do inside. Here you start from within and you see what it creates afterward, almost as a kind of it's almost a kind of emergent result. So personally, I think it's super interesting. I really enjoy that. I also enjoy the low rise, low density, and I think you need to be extremely radical. So here you are showing only one tiny part of La Défense in a very tiny area of La Défense. But obviously, when you will apply this in many other places in La Défense, many other locations in La Défense, then you will need to ask yourself what happened in between these things. What is the nature of the empty space? I propose that in most cases it will be park, it will be green space, maybe sport facilities. You will suddenly reintroduce in La Défense a feeling, I mean, both a kind of feeling of California, a kind of feeling of Silicon Valley, but also a feeling of a radically new kind of central business district, which is not based on a skyscraper, not based on density, and not based on an architectural design which starts from the outside as an object and which is designed from the outside towards the inside. Here you do the complete opposite. You develop something from within. And yeah, again, I think that potentially it's super interesting. It means that you really need to develop the landscape part of your project, the way it will be connected with some other part of La Défense that will be somewhere else. So yeah, again, I think it's a good move. It's not 100% clear how you connect all these things, how we can really walk within this kind of office space. It's not 100% clear where is the entrance, where, I mean, you know, at the moment it's still a bit messy, but I would say it's not too much of a problem at the moment. Keep it like that, keep it a bit messy, and try to focus on the application of that on the wall La Défense. Try to see what kind of buildings need to be destroyed. Look at the global landscape architecture and landscape design logic to make sure that, again, so can you share the screen with the link I just sent?
For this one?
Yeah, perfect. Go down. Yeah, perfect. So as you, yeah. No. Yes, this one. So the landscape one. Yes, that one. So what is good here, as you can see, is that there's a lot of opening. There's a lot of green space. Look at the amount of green space. There's a lot everywhere, you know, you have green space. You even have, not far from this, you even have a small airport here. So you can come with an airplane directly. You have sport facilities. You have free space here. Maybe it will be built, maybe not. I don't know. But again, what's interesting here is that it's a completely different logic, and I think you should emphasize this, because when we look at the global scale, you know, we have the CBD. So basically, it's Wall Street and New York. Obviously, you have many other CBDs, but let's make it simple. We have CBDs, and we have the Silicon Valley. You know, that model is centralized, it's high-rise, etc., and it's dense. This model is decentralized, it's green, it's not dense, and it's not high-rise. With what you are doing, you are really introducing this model into, I mean, you are saying, okay, the future of CBD is about transforming CBDs into Silicon Valley-like CBD, you know, almost something like that. And I think this idea is quite powerful.
Yeah, I agree with everything Philippe just said, and I think globally speaking, you're definitely moving in the right direction. It's nice to see it on site and in context. It's really an improvement. Can you go to the PowerPoint, because I do have two concerns. The main one is that I get the feeling that this, although I think the overall typology of the output is convincing, I can't really see how this is connected to the Carcassonne approach. And I fear that you might be jumping from one methodology to the other without thinking of how to connect them. So I think that's really important to get across, because at the moment that's not clear, and I'm not sure are they connected. So how is this connected to the Carcassonne approach other than it having the same colors? That's the question. Hello?
I hear you, but guys, did you hear Julian's comment?
Yes, I can hear.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's exactly my comment. So don't start just doing something. I'm very concerned in that sense, because throughout your project thus far, you've done a lot of interesting things. You've had loads of different interesting explorations, but I also noticed that you fail to connect one exploration to the next. And you have a tendency to jump from one thing and then to another one. But the richness of your project comes from connecting them. You can't just because you seem to have this kind of motivation that when we give you a comment, you want to address that, and that's good. But then you just jump to a new methodology to address it, rather than expanding your existing one in order to also address that. And that's what is, that's concerning me quite a lot, because I think that the card methodology is good, and you've been working on that for a couple of weeks. So make sure that that comes through in your design method, and that you use that rather than just jump into a new algorithm and using that one, because it should continue. You shouldn't stop with that, shelve it, and go to a new one.
Yeah, in fact, this all of this color scheme, all of the logic behind the color here, all of this should be related deeply related with the cards that you are using before, with what Julian is mentioning. And it should not be a new scheme. It should be the result of the application. Or can you go up? It should be a direct result of the application of up again. It should be the result of the application of everything you have done so far, not something new.
And then that leads me to my next comment, because page 10. Last week, I asked how you got this image, and you couldn't answer that. And instead of addressing that, you've gone to a new algorithm and used that and put some colors in it without being able to explain how you got to those colors. And you really need to tackle that. You need to resolve it, because you've got the methodology, the idea is there, but I get the feeling that you haven't resolved it. But I also don't think you can really move on before you've resolved this, because you need to use this. So I really want to see a resolved version of this that bases itself on page 9. So page 9, one page before, you've explained what you want to do. On page 8 and 9, you've explained what you want to do. But as far as I can see, maybe you have, but then you need to show it. But as far as I can see, you've not resolved this. And before you can move to applying this on a larger scale, you need to have this working, because otherwise it's not going to come across. And yeah, so I think the overall idea of applying it through the whole Sky network and like whatever you presented there, that's fine, but the previous step needs to be fixed as well. So, I mean, work on both things, but make sure you explain it and you have it clear, and that you don't stop developing one thing. You keep on developing it until it works, and you can integrate it with the rest. So, yeah, I think you're on the right track. You just need to make sure you also finish what you started with some parts. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because I'm not getting any response. A little.
No, it's not that complex.
Do you want me to write it down? I mean, if it's too difficult to follow, like verbally, I can write it down. It's fine, but I need to know, because I really want to make sure you understand what I'm saying.
Before we do the urban scale, we should focus on, maybe some of us should focus on how to use the rule of Coxon in the floor plan, and solve how to use the rules in architecture, in building scale.
Yes, but because yeah, go on.
No.
Sorry, I thought you were still saying no. Yes, absolutely. So make sure you resolve this, because at the end your project is going to have to be resolved, and you've presented this as your working method, but then your working method needs to actually work. So spend time on. So last week I commented on page 10 that I didn't believe that this output was actually based on what you presented on page 9. Fix that.
Okay.
So some of you get that working, because if you get this system, the Carcassonne logic working, you can apply it on the urban scale. But if it's not working, then you can't apply it. Yeah. Exactly. So go back to page 9 and just make an algorithm that follows what you actually defined, and then link it to the urban scale. I mean, like Philippe said, your project is inside out. So your urban scale is driven by how you assemble the office, and how you assemble the office is what we see here. So your project kind of stands and falls with this. Like, you need to resolve this. Yeah, so then they can't be combined. I mean, if one can't match the other, then you have to resolve that, and you have to address it in such a way that they can be combined. Because you can't just, so these things aren't separate explorations that you're doing. They should click in and fit in together to make one project that includes all of it. You can't just say one thing and then that's done and then I'll go to the next. They have to connect. Yeah, I think so too, but that's kind of what I'm saying. You need to, so I think page 22, so 2 back, that's good, because that's just a general massing without your colors. 23 and 24 aren't good because they are not outputs that you've actually defined, because they don't follow your logic. So then don't make them, because they aren't correct. So make sure you resolve it first before you try and apply a simulated version of it. But yeah, so yeah, I really have to insist, fix the transition from page 9 to 10, and then fix the transition from page 10 to 22. I think, yes, I mean, it should. So why else did you define those? You've defined those to use them, no? I mean, otherwise, why did you define them? Yeah, but then why didn't you come to me yesterday? Because last week I told you, if you have an issue, send me an email and we can Zoom. And yesterday I was available to help you with these issues, but you didn't come then either. So either fix it yourself or ask for help, but it's not an excuse that you can't do it. You need to learn to do it, but it needs to be done. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's good. You need to. So globally, send your questions to Julian for specific questions associated with a specific programming language. If it's more general question that I might help as well, of course, send your question to all of us. I mean, to Julian, myself, but also to Sugmin. But in any case, I think it's interesting. As I say, there is some radicality into that. But you need to understand it. First, you need to make sure that this is not a kind of random bunch of cubes, of course, because it's not going to work otherwise. So you need to create a clear link between this and everything which comes before. So this is super important. It should be linked to everything before. But then on an urban level, again, I think this is radical because it's so different from everything else in La Défense. And there is some radicality into that. So you need to make use of that. You need to be opportunistic and understand how you can optimize this difference of scale so that you can insist and you can really make your new district, your new addition in La Défense. You can really transform La Défense into something completely different. So there's going to be some landscape architecture, landscape design work, etc., etc. don't, solve what Julian was mentioning as soon as possible so that you will have enough time to focus on the global urban design logic of that. Okay?
Yeah.
Good. But it's promising, it's interesting. But obviously it cannot stay like that. There's a huge potential in this, but there's two problems. One is intrinsic logic. At the moment, the intrinsic logic of that and the intrinsic logic of the color is not rigorously linked to all the previous stuff.
Yeah.
And second, it's a very partial application. And obviously you need to think not just of this location, but you need to think of some other location in La Défense. And you need to think of what will happen when you will start to put this model in some other places. What is the global logic? What are the connections? What is the landscape design logic, etc., etc. Okay? So two things, two super important things.
Okay.
Perfect. Focus on that and keep us updated.
Oh, yeah.
Good. So next group, last group. But I think it's good. I think it's going to be good. And try to understand